Hey, good morning, everyone. Dave Wilson, Results Staffing and Social Media. Hey, today I'm joined with Katherine McCord from St. Lucie,
Port St.
Florida.
Lucie. Yeah.
Lucy, I got it right. And we're going to be talking about some great recruiting issues going on and concerns. And Catherine's very knowledgeable in it. So
Thank
everybody
you.
knows the drill. We will be right back after this. You see how fast that happens? It scares me.
I know, it's like, whoa, and now we're back.
Yeah, I tell everybody that I use that Fever app, Fever, whatever it's called.
Fever,
And
fiber, whatever.
Fiverr, yeah, he really does a great job with this. But I always tell him I don't even know he's dark 2019. But I say try to expand that last so it doesn't give people like
And like, oh, and now they're
yeah.
there
But
again.
he's awesome. Hey, everybody,
Great.
today I wanted to bring Katherine on, and I tell everybody that when I'm going through LinkedIn, I want to show value and bring guests on that show value so we can learn. And I hit Katherine's videos, and she kind of relates a lot to myself, and we're going to get into it. But Katherine, do you want to introduce yourself and what you do? And
Sure. I love to talk about myself. Why not? So my name is Katherine McCord. I run a recruiting and consulting firm that specializes in startups. Although we do work with everybody, but we specialize in startups called Titan Management. We're coming up on our 7-year anniversary. Very excited about that.
Nice.
I also host a show called Career Launch Live, where we talk all things professional. In fact, we have a mental health episode coming up on Wednesday next week that I'm real excited about, mental health in the workplace. And I've been doing hiring even before I got into recruiting. And I love it, and I'm passionate about it. And one of the things that I am most excited about is an innovation that I came up with that I think we're going to talk about later,
Yep.
which is an all-new applicant tracking system to fix the very broke, busted applicant tracking systems that we currently have on the market.
There's something. I think since I sit at this desk and I have Alexa sitting right there and my phone, every time I talk, anything we talk about today will come up in an email, and then you get all these emails that are everything that we talked about. I'm like,
yeah, I know. Facebook does that too. Like, this is so creepo. Like, I just said something to my husband, and then boop, there's an ad.
That's it. Well, I want to start out with what really stood out with me is how you said, no more tolerating discriminatory and poor hiring practices. I like this word, no more cookie cutter service and gouging prices. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what do you mean by how that hits you?
Yeah. So I'm going to address kind of the different sections of that. So one of the things that stood out to me the most when I was working for a staffing agency owned by someone else was that everybody was treated exactly the same. There was no difference. Everything was flat across the board, no matter how different the companies were from each other. And all the candidates were treated exactly the same. And that didn't make any sense to me, because every company is different. Every person is different. That just made zero sense. And then when it came to the pricing, I couldn't believe what these companies were charging to bring in somebody. And I was
Now
going
you said for
25.
consulting, is that bringing someone in to teach or
No,
consult?
to hire on an employee. So I'm
Oh,
just going to
okay.
go
Okay.
find you an employee and bring them on, and that's all I'm doing. And
Okay.
they're charging 25 to 30% of the annual salary. And I was
Yeah.
going, oh, that's not good. And especially if you're going to work with startups, which this company didn't really want to focus on startups, but I just thought there's no way they can afford that. That's
Right.
crazy. And there was nothing being done that was that value to me. So I kind of restructured, and I price very differently, and very much geared towards startups and what I feel is fair pricing for recruiting. And all my pricing is on my website, by the way. And then on the discrimination element, one thing I learned is that a lot of people, it's not that they're bad people.
Right.
It's not that they want to discriminate or that they're actively trying to, although I have some great stories about how, well, not great, but very interesting stories about people that are very actively being biased. But a lot of people just have inherent biases from different experiences throughout their lives, or things that they see on the media, for ways that they were raised. And it creates problems in the hiring process.
In that part
And
there.
and it happens all the time. And the worst one right now is ageism. Did you know
Right.
ageism has been lowered to 45? That's
Well,
so young.
Catherine, I told you before when we were talking about prior to this about unconscious bias, and I
Yeah.
told you about Gail Miller, and it really, when I first brought her on the show, and she was very education. I mean, she's very smart with it. She knows everything. And I said to myself, I was like, wow, I had to step back. And I was like, maybe I am a little biased in certain ways, nothing about people and stuff like that, but I didn't really understand. I don't think a lot of people understand what it is.
Right. Right.
You know?
Bias is actually a natural part of you. That's something that my sister, who's a counseling and psychology major, has talked about on my show. Is bias is actually ingrained in us for a reason. It's to protect us, to teach us, right, and to teach us patterns and help us to understand patterns. But the problem is that when you deal with human beings, everybody can break that pattern.
Right.
Every individual is completely different, so you have to retrain your brain to go, no, this is a whole new experience. I'm going to go into this and just learn this person as they are as an individual, and
What
leave
made you get
all that.
into that? What made you like? You're passionate about it because
I
majority
am.
if everybody listen, and if you feel like asking questions for Catherine, please comment. But when I noticed everything about your postings, you take that's your passion. What
Yeah.
made you just think about this? Or
A few different things. One of the kind of more dramatic instances was that and it's something that happens to all recruiters. I'm sure you've had this experience too, is that I started having more and more of an influx when I moved to South Florida of people saying, I don't want a Black person for this job. I don't want to bring in a woman. I don't want to bring in somebody over the age of 30. I don't want, and just all of these things. And
right,
when I stopped and I asked them why, it was always some misnomer. Oh, I need a man because they're tougher. I need somebody younger because they have more energy. Things like that. And I realized they were trying to communicate something valid about the position, but because of their biases, they were automatically cutting off this whole portion of the population. And I started realizing how many people are losing opportunities because of this. And so I really
right,
dove into it and I did research. And you hear these things about wage gaps, right? And people always go, well, that's not right because everybody at my job that's at the same level makes the same thing. Actually, that's right. And for the most part, when you have like location, like position, like education, so on and so forth, men, women, different minorities, and Caucasians all make about the same, within about 1
right.
to 1.5%. The wage gap, when you see that, that's an average of everything. And the reason that there's such a big wage gap is that minorities and women only make up approximately 12 to 13% of executive/decision making positions.
Right.
Okay. So
Wow.
that's where the wage gap comes in. So in other words, we're getting up to management, and maybe even director level, nothing past that.
Well,
And
what
because
I
of the wealth gap between those positions, that's what creates that big disparity.
well when we talk about this, one thing comes to my mind, and this was years ago. I had a client, I was walking a tour, and he had said to me that he didn't come right out. First of all, you don't put it on paper. I was always told you don't. It was a conversation, and it was like, all right, I get where he's going, because certain companies you have to have diversity, a certain percentage, supposedly.
Oh, if you have a government contract, yes, that is actually true.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, I kind of knew that I had to get more women,
Mm-hmm.
younger. It was younger women. So when the words came out about waitresses and the taverns, the bars, they have success. And then I was like, all right, I get it. But I still didn't do that all the time. I didn't, because I didn't know how to take it.
Right.
That was my first experience. I'm like, well, I can't go on social media and say, well, I have to have a young lady, a lady for this position, or a man for this position. Now,
Yeah.
when it
What was
was heavy lifting and big stuff like that, I had some girls that were really good at it. But I never thought about doing it, like how to
Right.
say it.
Because it's weird. And I do understand, and I really want to push to get away from that too on government contracts. Government contracts, by the way, folks, is the only time that you're allowed to specify that type of thing, because they
In the
actually
government.
require, in the government, yeah, because they
Okay.
actually require certain demographics and all of that. The rest of the time, that's breaking EEOC and ADA law. Don't do it.
Okay.
But you're right, that does happen, and I've run into that. That's actually, I don't work government contracts for that very reason, because I don't believe in that policy. But why? But there's nothing wrong with working those. I want to put that out there. It's just how it is. But how do you say that? How do you like?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, no job for you. Only women. It is very awkward. That's a very awkward type situation. And I have seen job ads, by the way, that say, hey, we're looking for some Black people. I'm not kidding. Like, like they flat out said we were looking for Black people, or we are looking for men, or we need some ladies to come clean house for us, or come clean the office for us. And it is off-putting. Even if I know it's a government contract and I know that that's why they're doing it, there is something just inherently like, ew.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with you on that. I think it is awkward and weird.
Would you like, let's just put a scenario, you pick up a client, and if somebody had said something, how do you confront that? How do you explain it to somebody? Like, it's a hard way, because if you want the business, but I don't know if I would come right out. I don't know. I mean,
so I actually just had this discussion with somebody. Okay. So the way that I do it is I start off and I say, okay, what are you really trying to communicate to me? What are you really trying to say that you do or do not want here? And then I will explain to them why they need to communicate it that way, not
right.
the other, and why that's important. And sometimes we can stop it there. Now, if they say, no, I just really don't want minorities, or no, I just really don't want women, or old people, or whatever it is, I then go to somebody above them, if possible, or someone else equal to them in the company. And I say, hey, I'm having this problem. This is a problem in your organization. If somebody feels this way, they need to be removed. And I'm real blunt about that. I just tell them flat out.
I know some of your videos. Some of your videos.
I'm real blunt on it. I go, they need to go. And if nothing happens, they're fired as a client. Right. Because I can't do anything. What that tells me is that as an organization, they are accepting that prejudice and that bias and that discrimination. And that's just not something in which I have any interest at all. And that's not my job to come in and fix that.
No, and I don't blame you there, because I told you before, if everybody would really just read up about it and learn, everybody does have some bias. And ever since the discussion, it's not like I just didn't realize I had certain aspects of it, not about people so much, but even about the jobs, about like when somebody says to me, I don't care who you send me somebody, send me bodies.
Right.
Okay. Send you bodies. I don't care who it is. I'm thinking who it is. But I stopped myself there. I'm like, no matter who,
Yeah,
Like,
that doesn't seem right either. That's going to the other
nah,
direction. Like, I feel like you're being too loosey-goosey here about this.
yeah, and I don't get it. So I kind of just I kind of, I don't know. I changed the subject,
Right? Because it's
and that's where
awkward.
it is, because I'm like, I don't know what to say, because I had an
And
example. I had an example in one of the companies, and I was doing video resume screening, and I would send people, probably millennials, ages that were applying for customer service and accounts payable, and they were getting interviews and getting a job. And now with COVID, I have some great. I'm going to say everybody above 50. When
right.
I send those videos, I wasn't getting anything. Some people are saying, well, they're not qualified in one software. I'm like, no, wait a minute here. It says in the job description, will train.
Right.
After about 4 times, I stopped, because I was the one who had to go back to those ladies and tell them, well, one software. And you're like, somebody's got 20 years. You're telling me, but you'll take somebody that's got 5 years out of college. So I stopped.
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's what you should do, is just go, well, I'm just not gonna, like, this is just silly. We're obviously age discriminating here. This
it
is,
is.
it is what it is. And I think too, and I coach candidates sometimes on this too, how to make sure that you're showing energy, make sure that you're showing ability to learn, things like that, because those are important traits, no matter your age, gender, whatever.
Right.
Those are important. I've also run into a lot. I can't hire a person of this persuasion or of this lifestyle or this religion, because that's different from my beliefs.
Right.
Here's my
Well,
retort.
that's a good. I didn't even think of that. You just
Yeah.
hit me on that one. I didn't think about that.
Here's my retort to that. Now, obviously, if it's a church or something, that would make sense, right?
Right.
That's kind of different. And by the way, religious discrimination is the one that is on a strong decline. So that's actually kind of exciting to me. I was very excited to
Yeah.
find that out. That's on eeoc.gov. I got that stat. I was very excited. It's on a very strong decline. But I tell people, well, why does that matter for your business? Is your business religiously based, or have something to do with sexual orientation or whatever? Is it based on that? No. Do you think that maybe some of your clients might share their beliefs?
Right.
Yeah, that's possible. So wouldn't it be smart to have someone in your company that can relate to that audience? And if you don't have customers with those beliefs, you will get customers, because there will be somebody there representing them.
Right.
And it's been shown that when you, and it was Boston Consulting Group, yeah, that's it, that did a study that said that when you bring in true diversity, so that means people from all over, all different backgrounds, all different races, the different genders, all of that, that you will increase your revenue by an average of 19%, simply because they understand a broader spectrum of the population. And so your customer base increases and their innovation increases. And isn't that amazing? That's what you want in your company. So I tell everybody, you don't want 20 of the same sales guys. You don't want 10 of the same customer service reps. You want all different people with all different skills. That's what you want, because it reaches your customers in a new kind of way, and it makes you successful. So that's how I try to communicate it to companies, is this is why it matters to you. It's gonna help your business. It's gonna help with your employee retention. It's going to increase innovation, and it's gonna make all these different populations feel good about doing business with you. And ultimately, we're all here to make money, right? So it matters. I can't hear you, David. See.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay.
There you are. You sounded like a little munchkin for a second.
Munchkin?
Like your voice got real high pitched and funny.
It's this expensive microphone that's useless.
Don't buy expensive microphones, people. That's what we're learning here today.
Yeah. What do you I get a lot of people when we talked about ageism, that when they call me, well, I'm not going to get the job because I'm older. They won't hire me because I'm older. They won't hire me because I don't have a college degree, but they've spent the last 20 years in HR, And now with COVID, everybody has stories. And
I have
I
a
try to
whole
tell,
tangent about college degrees, by the way. That's a whole other show, but
right.
keep going.
Yeah, but I try to tell people, because I believe I like the video resume screening and assessment. The only reason I like that is because some people, when you're listening to myself or a candidate, it's nice to hear something because they have something they can offer you.
Yes.
It's not like, and then a lot of people, well, I'm not there. The one lady yesterday, she said, well, they get intimidated, but they're going to take their job. And I try to tell the clients, no, just listen to the person first, because when you're that first couple minutes, you sit there and when that you've interviewed, you're like, okay, but 5 to 10 minutes into it, I'm like, I start to stop and I'm like, wow, you can really learn a lot from that person. And then I'm engaged, but I stop myself. I'm not going to just the first 5 minutes say no when I interview.
Right. You have to. And one of the things too that always cracks me up is when hiring teams expect somebody to be a professional interviewer. Like, that's not their job. That's yours. You need to be good at this. Who cares if they stink at interviewing? You're not hiring them to interview.
Right.
That's ridiculous. Same thing with resumes. But to your point, I think that a lot of people, because I've heard that nonsense of, well, they're going to be afraid that I'm going to try to take their job. The reason people think that is that happens, and people get really intimidated, and the hiring team will be afraid. Well, there's a couple of things I have to say to that. Grow up, first of all. I mean, if you don't want the most talented person because they intimidate you, then you need to be better at your job.
That's a good way to think about it. I like that.
You need to grow. You need to do better. I've specifically hired people that I knew would outgrow everything I was teaching them, because they were going to be a valuable asset in the meantime. And wow, won't it be amazing to see where they go from here? I mean, seriously, why would you not want somebody that valuable and that amazing on your team? That's ridiculous. I've always told people I've always been the best at everything I do. The only person, this is so embarrassing to admit, but the only person that has hands down beaten me on 2 different occasions, I mean, just factually in numbers, is my husband.
Right.
We've worked together several times. And so I tell people, and yet when I started a company, I go, come, please be part of this, do this. Let's grow together, because it's about growth and it's about taking care of the company. It's not about you feeling good about yourself and your ego.
Right. That makes sense.
And old people, by the way, quote, although I don't think this is very old, can learn just fine. I have brought in 2 people over the age of 60 who have never recruited in their life, never sourced in their life, and taught them how to do it. And they did very, very well.
We got a response from Daryl. I measure my success by the success of those I lead, train, your replacement.
100%. Mic drop for Daryl on that.
Yeah, Daryl joins in on the show all the time, and he's former military also, and he's got some great ideas and about second chances, and he works with, and that's a different show, like you said again. But Daryl comes up. And
Daryl, reach out to me. I want to do a whole episode on second chances, so reach out to me, please.
Yes, Daryl.
I'm telling you, man. Yeah, and that's another thing too. I'm sick of hearing, oh, well, somebody had a baby and was out for a few years, so now they're useless. Or somebody took care of a loved one for a couple of years, so now they're useless. Somebody went to jail for something completely idiotic, so now they're not a good employee. No. This person still has value. They still have abilities. And our military, they do not do a good job rolling out their guys and helping them prepare. And so I've done a lot of volunteer work to help veterans, because they're not well prepared when they're sent out into the world, and they get out there and people go, well, your skills aren't applicable. And not on paper, but when you talk to them and you get to know them and you realize what's going on in their head, a lot of times you can find great value in them. And there again, I brought in military personnel that were infantrymen, that were gunsmen, that were a mechanic, and taught them financial services, taught them recruiting, taught them all different kinds of things, and they were superb.
That's why today, I mean, our whole family, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and my father dropped us off at 17, I said, get out. And he waited. He waited until we signed up. So then, like, behind me, all the stuff I did in the military is I was a tank commander. And then on Korea, you know, so I blew up things. I'm thinking,
That's
boy,
cool. I want to blow up stuff.
yeah, I'm like, what do I do when I get out? But what I've learned is all of my brothers is we've had, you know, you measure your success and everybody says, well, I'm successful, or we all have just great careers, like jobs. Nobody's been in trouble with the military. Like you said, you're trained, it stays with you the whole entire career, you know, for leadership. And that's why when you said that hit me on that part, because you can train them. They're very loyal. I do what I'm told.
The best assistant I ever had was a former Marine. Or he doesn't like me saying former. He's a Marine that is no longer active. That's how
it's former, or is it? I don't know. They get irritated when you say a certain word.
They do, but he was the best because he knew how to do a million different things at once, and he knew how to anticipate my needs.
Right.
And that was a skill that he learned in the military. And so he was great. Best assistant you could ever ask for. Just like I would come in and my whole desk would be organized, also great at organization, would organize everything for me, have my drink ready for me, have whatever else ready, tell me what was going on in the bullpen, ready to go.
Ready to go.
Bam,
That's why I love it. That's why I like it, because it helps.
It's terrific.
It helps for leadership. It shows anybody. I would love. I mean, listen. I would love in Korea. You were mandatory. As soon as you graduated, they were called katusis. They had to go to college for 2 years, schooling, mandatory. You know, I always say I'd love to take, you know, our I don't know. You want to say it, our candidates now. But you have to go. Yeah, you have to go in the military for 2 years and get screamed at, yelled at, and then come back out and you're fine. But
I tried to go in the military. They rejected me.
Oh,
I have health problems. They were you're defective. Right. They said I was defective.
Defective. I wanted to ask you one more question here, and then we're going to get into your ATS. What do you, if you have candidates that come to you and you've hired them on, and like I have candidates that are working now, and they come back to you and they say they feel that supervisor there is biased, let's just say diverse, you know, and you get a couple complaints about that. How do you handle that? And what do you recommend? Like, what would you do?
With my clients, I always start by going to the HR person or the closest representative in that company and having a conversation with them and saying, hey, just so that you know, and I say it with the very first complaint, this, just so you know, this was brought to my attention. I don't give the name of the person. And I just say, just something to keep an eye on. Please let me know if you see anything. The next time that it happens, especially if it's a different person, I let them know again. Okay, now that it's a couple of people, something, or multiple complaints from the same person, something's definitely going on. We need to do an investigation. And then I work with them. And I did it much the same way when I was on site and helping run, you know, internally inside of a company and doing the same thing. I would go to a manager, we'd talk about it, that type of thing, and just investigate it. And if you find that type of bias, I firmly believe if the person wants to change, I firmly believe in giving them a chance to grow.
Yes.
And putting them through some DEI training and kind of working with them on their management skills. I am not for, unless it's just egregious, I am not for firing somebody for something like that. Now, if they fight back and go, I just don't see the problem with my behavior, I shouldn't have to change, then you've got to let them go, because that's that's just a willingness to not grow.
It is, because it's an uncomfortable situation for everybody.
It is. Yeah.
And to bring it up and just say the wording, the way you say it to an HR. And I've had to, and that, you know, I've gone to, and you get some pushback of, I don't think so. I don't think so. But then when it is again and again, I think as not just a recruiter, but as a person that you have to have someone's back. You have to be like, well, wait a minute. That's a person you got to respect and investigate it. If you don't investigate it, I've told people, and I've learned through the years, it bites you. It comes back to you.
Oh, yeah.
It comes back.
Yeah.
You know, as I get older, I want to say as I get older, it was different when I was younger as a management and all the different companies. You didn't know, you didn't understand as versus now today.
Yes,
To be a
there's
really
so
good
much
leader.
education.
Yeah, and it's mostly about the people.
Yeah,
To
that's
treat
it.
it's not so much about the job, but
Yeah.
just being there for them, answering their questions, and giving them try to give them the right career advice. That's hard.
I think the best advice I was ever given about management, and I think the best advice I could ever give to a manager, is to remember this is not a position of power. It is a
Right.
position of servitude. Your whole job is to
Hmm.
set up your team for success and to
Right.
build them up so that they can do their jobs.
Right.
That's it. That
It
that
is.
is your whole job. And so if that means that you need to adjust something about your behavior, that's what
That's
needs to happen. Yeah.
that's
And
so
it's hard. That's a
truthful.
hard thing to realize. I've had to realize that, like, oh, well, I need to change that. That's not very helpful,
Right. Just to learn. And I've learned a lot about everything is on LinkedIn. A lot of colleagues that I've been meeting, like yourself, and I take some of that knowledge from you, and then I've been writing notes down because I keep that because you learn a lot.
You
A
do.
lot of people from all across the states and different scenarios, different
Yep.
recruiters, what they've encountered, and
Yep.
I wanted to bring up the last thing, and I know this is your baby, if you want to call it, but how about talking about your new patent pending innovative ATS?
I'm so excited
Yeah.
about it. So I got into this because applicant tracking systems, for if you don't know, that's basically the CRM, or the tracking technology for recruiters and human resource departments to
Right.
keep track of everybody that applies to jobs and that gets hired and goes through the interview process. They are notoriously awful. Everyone makes fun of them. That's in
I know
HR and recruiting.
that's the
They
way
are,
you said it.
and I mean, even the good ones they still have problems because just nobody's really done anything about it. And
Right.
one of the biggest reasons I created this technology outside of that obviously we got to move past, there is the diversity and inclusion aspect. And I don't believe, as I said earlier, in focusing on we need this many Black people, this many gay people, this many women, who whatever. I believe in hiring the person, not their wrapping.
Right.
Look at the person, what they can do. And so I wanted to create an applicant tracking systems highlight those attributes as opposed to putting the highlighted importance on things like your skills, what you can
Right.
actually do. And then the other aspect is that resumes are nonsense and they absolutely must be stopped. When over
I don't like them.
90% of the population can't create or is not comfortable creating an effective version of the document that is supposed to land them a job,
Yeah.
there's a problem. So I wanted to create a solution for all of that. So what I've done is I partnered with Hiring Thing. They're phenomenal. They're actually the back end to a lot of the existing systems. I went to them and I said, "Hey, this is my idea," and they ate it up. They, as a minority and woman run
Nice.
company,
Love it.
they
Love it.
ate it up. And so we have built out a system that is launching in a few weeks, actually, for its little baby test, and then fully to the public about a month after that, so the end of March. That takes the resume, basically hides it, and uses that along with a little bit of information input by the candidate to create a candidate profile that is masked so it doesn't show your name. It gives a headline similar to what you would see on LinkedIn
Right.
instead of your name. It hides any dates so that nobody knows how old you are, but it does give your average tenure. So for employers who are worried about that, they still have a solution. And then it highlights your skills and how you match up to the job. And then what happens is you go through, and as they ask you, hey, as the candidate, hey, do you want to move forward in this job process? When you say yes at a certain level,
Right.
then they can see your phone number and your name and all of that. But until then, all they know is what you can do.
That's awesome. I like the idea of it. I mean, I'm excited for you. Teal has create a job tracker, the company for job seeker. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I'll have to look that up. But yeah, I'm always trying to learn about all the new technologies out there. We are patent pending. I'm super excited about it because I think it solves both the DEI concerns, and then also the fact that resumes are really stupid and must go away.
Well, I don't like, and the people that have followed me in my career now with results, and my vision was to be virtual, remote, tired of the resumes. I think they're useless.
They are.
One company I loved working for is they would go like this. You'd come in, and this is what I had done. Okay, here's your resume. I'd go like this. Okay, now we have 30 minutes here. Let's just talk, because I said by the end of this 30 minutes, you're going to know a lot about me and my personal life, my life, career, and I'm going to know about you. So don't worry about that. And believe it or not, you didn't need that, because you didn't really even look at it. I mainly look at for the tenure, how many years at least you're not a 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Something's wrong there a little bit. Or don't ever assume that, because, and this is what I mean. When I talk to the candidate, I noticed a lot of different jobs for staffing agencies. She had done it because she likes to work for staffing companies, and she'll take a break and then she'll go to another one. But if you didn't ask that, if I didn't hear it, you would have looked at that first resume. Oh, no.
Yeah.
But she does it for her family when she needs to work.
Right.
So that brought me to where my biggest thing now is I don't assume. I don't assume do you have transportation? Why should I ask you, do you have transportation? You don't know why I don't have your transportation. You don't know, maybe my significant other lost their job. You don't know why you can't afford that. Why is it me that I'm going to be to the job?
Like, that's all you need to know. Am I going to show up to work? Am I going to do my job?
That's it. I don't want somebody asking me that. Why would you ask me that?
Personal. It's just like those. I want to get away from. And not that there needs to be laws about it, but I just want to get away from all of these idiotic personal questions that just don't matter. Like, this is one of my favorites. What do you do on the weekend? What do you care? What?
That's what I mean.
And I don't want to share that with you. I don't know you like that.
I know.
I'm a very guarded person when it comes to my real personal life. And so I don't want to share that with somebody I just met. Ew.
No, and
it's not your business.
I don't care for the job boards anymore. I don't care for them. It's a new year. I always tell people, listen, if you're going to change your company at any point in time, now is the time, because you have an excuse. I always hear you can blame it on COVID. Oh, well, you had to readjust, because I tell a lot of companies, the only reason you're changing now is because it fits you at this moment. It fits you at this moment. You can't do it from last year. You weren't allowed to do that. No background checks, or background checks required, drug screening required. And now all of a sudden you're short staffed. Well, no drug tests required. Well, no background. I'm like, what?
No.
I mean, it's like, you got to be freaking kidding me. Wait a minute. You don't want a drug screen, or you do? And don't get me wrong.
You know what's funny to me too about the drug screen is that people a lot of times misunderstand the point of that, because I've seen a lot of candidates go, well, what does it matter if I smoke pot on the weekends, or what is it? And I go, okay, you're missing the point. Really and truly, unless you're talking about something where you're operating machinery or something like that. The point of a drug test, it's a stupidity test. That's what it is. Are you smart enough to not do drugs while you're job searching?
Oh, I know. It's like, just wait.
That's all it is.
I've had a couple candidates say, can I wait 30 days?
Yeah. Oh, Lord Jesus. And it's so funny. I always tell people, I couldn't care less what you do in your spare time at all. I mean, frankly, if you're an axe murderer, that doesn't affect me in terms of your employer.
Right.
That's not even axe murder anybody here. But have the sense, if you know something is going to be an issue, to deal with it and to act accordingly. And if you can't stop smoking pot for 30 days, you have an addiction, and please, in all sincerity, seek help.
I know, right?
You should be able to take a break. It's just like with drinking. You should be able to take a break.
Take a break. We have something for Daryl here, and then we're going to be wrapping up.
All right.
I believe the next issue will be demanding use of your phone, computer, your home space without compensation. They have begun policies of control if you receive compensation for the use, including recent content pictures.
He is completely on point about the fact that now a lot of people are being expected to use their own devices. And here's what I have to say about that. If you are a contractor, that's how that goes. Okay, folks, that's just how it goes. That you are responsible for that because you're seen as your own entity. Okay.
Right.
But if you're a W-2 employee, you should 100% be compensated for that. And there are actually laws and guidelines for that. Look them up, copy paste it to your employer and go, I want to check. Or
yeah,
send me
especially your own
one of the
computers,
two.
everything. Yeah, because you're utilizing your own tools. And a lot of people don't want, these are the kind of things that I like conversations, the way we're doing it here. Some of them are hard conversations, but you have to talk about them.
You have to.
And
you have
offer
to.
solutions. You can't just sit there and say, hey, I love quotes. Don't get me wrong. I love quotes. But on LinkedIn, when I hear all these quotes, hey, I feel happy, la-di-da-di-da. But then at the end of the day, if you didn't do anything about it, instead of just being in that moment of, hey, that's leadership. Wow. Well, what did you do afterwards about it? It just makes you feel good in the moment.
Solutions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Come up with long-term viable solutions. And sometimes, folks, you're going to have to get a little uncomfortable with your employer. That's just how it goes. Okay. Sometimes you have to call them out of their nonsense. Do it politely and go into it assuming that they're not trying to screw you over.
Right.
And then so there's just been a misunderstanding and say, hey, let's solve it. Here are my ideas. Have ideas. And say, but I'm open to suggestion. What do you think? And just, you'd be surprised. A lot of times when you approach it like that, it goes fine. If they give you a hard stop, start looking for a new job.
Well, I like
guys are worth looking for.
I like this one short story. Then we're going to wrap it up. As I was at a company, and he called the general manager. It was a whiteboard. So he had all the employees together in one little area, and before he ever made a change, he wrote it on the board. And he said, all right, at any time now, anybody want to come up and write yes or no, reason why? So people would come up. Well, and then he'd be looking. And at the end of the day, he'd be like, whoa, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. Well, he had a decision, but at least people had a voice.
Yes. I like that suggestion, actually. That is really good. And you should always be asking your people when you're making a decision that affects them.
It is. Always. And that's what happens here. Hey, Bill from Pittsburgh, Bill Bradford. He's always comes on. He's a great guy, and he always chimes in. Yeah, Bill, this is another person you need to connect with because
you do.
Yeah, you do, because Katherine, if you watch some of her videos, you're like me, Katherine. I always say, are they going to hire me as a? Are they going to hire me?
I got all the stuff to say, and oh man, there was one I nearly did the other day, and I had to stop myself because I was way too keyed up, and there was going to just be some words that came out of my mouth, but about trauma. I ended up doing one the next day when I kind of simmered down a little bit, but I felt I lost some of the passion in it. But yeah, about dealing with trauma in the workplace and all of that, because man, I have seen some messed up stuff lately that I'm going, please don't do that or say that. And please don't go up to somebody and say, I need to know what's going on with you, because no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You need to help them through that. Please don't do that.
No, and I agree with you there, because I think every day we learn in staffing, man, that never happened to me before.
Right.
Wow. You would think after all these years that I would have seen it all, but you don't, because then you're like, whoa, wait a minute here. Where'd that one come from?
And I do real quick before you wrap up, because I know you want to wrap up, but I want to put this out there because I have a lot of people say to me, well, I don't see this discrimination, so it's not real. And ultimately, like, it's kind of the summation of what they say to me. And I want to remind everybody that just because you're not cruddy doesn't mean that other people aren't. And here is a prime example. A lady recently commented on one of my posts that her former employer used to put NT or some other variation of that on their applications. And she's like, on the job descriptions. And she's like, what does this mean? And they said, after your probation period, we'll tell you. So she asked again after her probation period. And what they were saying is not tinted applicants acceptable and tinted applicants acceptable. Tinted meaning not white, which is the most gross terminology I have heard in a long time. And they were overtly discriminating. These things happen. I get told all the time, and I don't work with these people, but I get told all the time, I only want white people.
Wow.
I only want young people. I only want men. And by the way, saying that to me, I don't know what they were thinking, but people do. And I see it all the time. Every recruiter I know has stories. Every HR person I know has stories. It happens, folks. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not real. So go out and ask and learn and educate yourself.
And that's what I've done. And it's changed it does.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit. And again, it's nothing about race, everything like who believes in what, anything like over politics, all it doesn't matter. I stopped assuming. And
don't assume.
And like Bill says, wow, not good. And
that was not good.
It is. And I love
examples I've seen.
And these are the kind of shows that I did the other one on termination, of how to terminate an employee, all this good stuff. And I wasn't
you
sure.
probably do it a lot nicer than I do.
Well, there's a couple shows that sometimes you don't know about the topics, but I want to just talk about it and try to, what have you done? Because why would I come on here and say I've been biased? But bias in a way can go all up to a different thing. It's not just about the workplace. It's not just about who you live with or what you do or what your neighbors do or what everybody does.
And just because you have a Black friend does not mean that you don't have biases. I just want to put that out there.
And it's the truth.
You don't have biases.
We teach our son the same thing. We don't even label. We don't label nobody. I stopped labeling. I don't like it. I don't like because I just don't like it.
No, I don't like it either.
Everybody labels. Well, they're this. Well, they're this. Who cares?
I get labeled all the time. And I'm like, no, that's not it.
That's not it. All right. Well, I want to give you a minute here and just tell what you do again, how to reach out to you. We'll put it on the thread, but tell me what you're about and your 1 minute elevator speech.
My 1 minute elevator speech. Okay, I am Katherine McCord. I am the host of Career Launch Live, where we talk all things professional. And we are about to go to weekly episodes on Wednesday starting in March. Until then, we have one on the 10th and one on the 24th from 12 to 2 Eastern Standard Time. And please tune in. We have mental health and then women in business this month.
That's interesting.
And then in my real job, I run Titan Management, which is a recruiting and consulting firm specifically geared towards entrepreneurs and startup businesses. And if you have any hiring needs, I would love to help you out. And job seekers, while I'm not personally a job seeker coach, I know some phenomenal ones. So if you would like a recommendation, I would be very happy to make one for you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, follow the show. We're even on iHeart and Spotify. And that's my elevator pitch.
Wow, you said that so you said that so well. I was just like watching you going, okay, how do you remember all that stuff, boy? But no, I want to thank you so much, Katherine, and thank you for coming on. I enjoyed your videos. And like I said, everybody, you want to hear somebody like myself that tells the truth. I always tells the truth and just not sugarcoating it. That's what caught me about Katherine's on LinkedIn.
I don't sugarcoat.
No, and I was like, you know what? That's what drew me towards you, because it was like I always have a hard time saying, do you be honest, or are you honest, or are you just sugarcoating it like that? You need to know the truth.
You do.
You know, and I don't tell everybody I have all the answers, because I don't. Because some people on the show here will be saying this, and I'll be like, wow, again, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay.
I'll be like, you got me on that one. Let me think about it. That's my favorite thing saying. So thanks a lot so much, Katherine. And we are going to end it with here, and stay right there. I'll be right back.